how are you able to vet that these creators and or brands are going to show up and do what they say they want to do?
It starts from a level of trust in terms of like collaboration, so creative collaboration. So the brand needs to trust both the studio, in our case, and the creator. For what it costs to get into these things, it has to be low enough to welcome brands in. We have to constantly be ushering that price upwards because...
Hello everyone, I am here with Ian Schafer, and today I have a few questions for you. The first question I have is, in your opinion, what makes a creator-brand collaboration actually move the needle in the sports culture beyond just going viral?
So, I mean, everyone uses the term authenticity, and I think it goes well beyond that. I think it's about trust. Trust that the creator is transparent about their relationship with the brand, so that audiences are very welcoming of this. Like, they know that is how creators make their money. So I think they're totally cool if they feel like the creator chose the brand as much as the brand chose the creator. But that needs to come out. And I think that is more than authentic. I think it's about trust, and it's something that is in very short supply. So the more that you can show that there is trust between the creator and the brand, and trust between the creator and the audience, and make that like a three-tiered connection, then I think that's what really works. And with sports, it's not just trust, it's passion, right? And so like I think fans want to trust that the brand is as passionate about the project as the creator is. And so I think that's why even in the projects that we do with brands, we're very much making sure that we are casting the brands as much as they're choosing us from a sponsorship perspective.
What a fantastic answer. How are you able to put a metric on trust? How are you able to vet that these creators and or brands are going to show up and do what they say they want to do?
Well, I think it starts from a level of trust in terms of like collaboration, so creative collaboration. So the brand needs to trust both the studio, in our case, and the creator. And it helps in our case because look, like we were co-founded by a creator, right? And so there's this perceived notion that yes, we know what we're doing and we know how to work with those creators, and we let them cook. And I think, when we work with a brand also, like we put that out there right at the beginning, man. Look, when you work with us, we're not going to be creative directing a creator into a commercial shoot. They are telling the story that they're weaving your brand into in their words, in their pictures, in their motion. And I think a brand needs to be able to let go just enough to make that a reality. And that's like, it's like a trust fall.
Yes.
Right? Literally. So as long as we're establishing that, and look, we've kind of find areas of predictability with it all. Like we'll share storyboards, which isn't normally the case when a brand works with a creator. Yeah. So we'll like add some infrastructure to the partnership to help establish that trust, so it doesn't feel like everyone's just like freestyling. Yeah. But I think in doing so, it establishes a layer of professional trust that I think when married with the passion trust, like really, really makes things pop and really makes audiences engage with it. And when you talk about metrics, it's like, do audiences like it? That's going to be the best metric. Are they sharing it? Are they watching it? How many times are they watching it? How many times are they sharing it? That is where it all lies from a success standpoint for the brand, and that's what keeps them coming back for more.
It is so refreshing talking to someone in the marketing world that, as a creator myself, has a finger on the pulse of what actually works. Not just buzzwords, not just, you talked about this on stage with the panel, not just influencer, creator, engagement, authenticity. You redefine those terms, and how did you get there?
Well, it started with an observation. I think I used to run an ad agency.
Yes.
And we used to make things that interrupted the content that people wanted to see. You are somebody who obsesses over the things that people want to see.
Exactly.
And not only that, but also what the algorithms will let them see. So brands are great at telling the stories that they think will result in sales for them, but you're great at telling the stories of things that audiences will actually want to watch, especially in that 50+% of the time where they're consuming content from people like you, right? And so, when I met Issa, it was, we were sort of kindred spirits in the fact that I wanted to get out of making things that interrupted what people wanted to watch, and she wanted to make more content that brands wanted to invest in. So it was like a great collaboration there, and then we just surrounded ourselves with people who understood that process, how to make that happen, how to scale it, how to make as much of it as possible with as few resources as possible, because I think that's also part of the DIY nature of content creation these days, right? We just have access to more tools, are able to do more with less.
Yeah.
And by the way, brands love to hear that too.
Yeah.
And I guess what? Like 8 hours of content shouldn't cost the same amount today as it did 10 years ago.
Amen.
So work with creators and you'll understand why.
Yeah, I love that. Such a refreshing answer. I had to ask follow-up questions because your answers were so insightful. This was technically supposed to be my second question, but Ian, what kind of cultural capital do you think women's sports holds right now? And what needs to happen for that to become a lasting influence?
I think the one of the pieces of cultural capital that women's sports has is that everyone's looking at it as something that's coming next. And I think if you look at the level of brand investment that has been there, which is nowhere near where it needs to be or where it should be, but it's getting closer, they see it as an investment in what's next. The hope is, though, that the cost basis that they get into it at is not the cost basis that they continue to support it at. As Fat Joe says, yesterday's price is not today's price.
Right.
So I think that is something that we have to watch out for. We have to raise the floor, not just raise the roof, raise the floor for what it costs to get into these things. It has to be low enough to welcome brands in. We have to constantly be ushering that price upwards because it's scarcity. I mean, there are only so many athletes in the WNBA. There are so many professional athletes playing in U.S. women's rugby or U.S. women's hockey or whatever, or NWSL, right? And so there is a level of scarcity there. So it's on us collectively as the media to shine a light on these women who have such incredible stories. And I think that's the one thing that's even more interesting with women than the men is the dimensionality of their stories and their willingness to tell them and their willingness to showcase it. I think you see, like, especially in the W, like women are more comfortable in their own skin. They're more comfortable creating their own style. The tunnel fits are a thing now that were not there with women in years past. And so I think now, like, as brands start to look at that as something that's culture forward, we just have to make sure that we're building it in a way that makes it culture present when the time is right. And I think that time is coming very soon. I mean, you can kind of feel it in the atmosphere here in Indianapolis. Something different than in years prior. And I think, we just have to keep feeding into that. And you saw with AZ Bud, the next generation of talent is coming fast. And they are more media savvy than any other athletes that have come into any other league prior. So I'm here for it. We're all here for it. Let's take advantage of all the NIL rules in college, and let's just be responsible about making stars at a young age.
Yeah, exactly. This is my last question. Fun fact, I was the first ever college athlete in history to monetize my name, image, and likeness.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Was I a top 1% or D1 athlete? No, but I was someone, like you just mentioned, that was very media savvy. I stumbled into a couple million followers on TikTok, and I was able to understand what wielding an audience like that looked like financially, and also just as someone who has social media and likes to scroll. When you're sourcing creators with large audiences, especially when promoting what you just talked about, the fastest 6 weeks in sports, how do you vet these creators? How do you see someone and say, I want you to promote this because I believe in what you're doing?
So Issa's a big part of that process. So Issa, again, having been there and being arguably one of the top, if not the top curator in Hollywood, she has an eye for talent, right? And so we're in constant conversation about, who's going to pop next, who's doing great stuff now, who do we want to wrap our arms around? That's the first cut. The next cut is do we see an opportunity for them with either the brands that we work with or an opportunity to create something that brands might want to be a part of. And then once you cross that threshold, then it becomes, is a brand going to feel like it's okay to work with them? And there's elements of brand safety, and that's all relative to every brand. There's notions of competitive conflicts. So I think one of the things that creators need to watch out for is you do one post for one brand. I don't care if it's for $20 or $20,000. That might take you out of the category for 3 years. So you got to be careful about who you take your money from if you want to take your money from somebody else. So that's another thing that we have to work very closely with brands to do, because so many layers of vetting that we do before it even gets to a place where we can recommend. But even after we recommend, it's got to go through a whole round of vetting on the brand side that often involves legal. And sometimes that's where opportunities go to die. So we just be very versatile and make sure we have a deep bench.
Fantastic answer. Thank you, Ian.